My name is Rene Zambrano, and this morning we're interviewing Mr. Joe Casillas for the U.S. Latino and Latina World War II Oral History Project. We're sitting Mr. Casillas here in Chula Vista, California, in his real estate office. Um, Before we begin this interview, sir, I would like to begin by acknowledging your time and commitment to contribute to this project, and let you know that we really appreciate your contribution here. We would also like to explain the purpose of the interview for the record by reading the interview release form. The purpose of the U.S. Latino and Latina World War II Oral History Project is twofold. One is to salvage the stories of U.S. Latinos and Latinas of the World War II generation, and second is to develop a structured audio, video, and photographic archive that will be accessible to scholars, journalists, and others interested in learning more about what life was for U.S. Latinos and Latinas before, during, and after World War II. The archives will be housed at the Nettie Lee Benson Land American Collection at the University of Texas Center for American History. So, having said this, sir, if we can have you sign this on this side. I'll go ahead and sign myself. Thank you very much. And we'll begin this interview by having you tell us about your growing up in San Diego and a little bit about your family, where your family comes from.
Yes, I was. I come from a family of nine siblings, and but my family came from the state of Jalisco. My father immigrated about 1914. He was just a teenager. Came and worked in the copper mines in Arizona for a couple of years. Saw the deplorable conditions and then moved westward. Came out to California, still a teenager, and began working out here in whatever was available. He recounted that one of his first jobs was to cut the streets in La Jolla and Pacific Beach using mules and mule-drawn equipment and so on. He later came to Chula Vista, where he worked for a chemical company for 25 or 30 years, and bought property in Chula Vista, 2 acres to be exact, built a home, and I was born in that home in 1927. I was the first one of the 9 children my mother had. I was the 5th one, and I was the first one born in that house. All of my brothers and sisters were born in Chula Vista. We grew up here, went to school, the local schools. Those of us who went to college at the University of California, San Diego City College, the local high schools, and so on. I was raised during the Depression and was witness to some of the hardships experienced by many people during that period, and I was a witness to the influx of many internal migrants. These were folks who came from states such as Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and so on during the Depression, and particularly as a result of the Dust Bowl experience. Very good experience. Learned a lot about people, other people, etc. I got to go to school with a lot of them. Learned a lot about what they'd been through, and so on. Great experience. In 1941, when the war broke out, I was a teenager, and just about the age where I could do some work. And so I stayed here. 3 members of my family went into the military. I spent the wartime here. I was in high school, junior high school and high school, and then immediately after the war, the hostilities ended, and then I entered the military, the Army, the U.S. Army Air Corps. But during the wartime, I saw a lot of what was going on here, including the evacuation of the Japanese, which was very interesting development. The day after the evacuation took place, my classroom was half empty. About 50% of students were of Japanese descent. And so I saw that firsthand and thought it was a terrible experience for them. It was a terrible experience for the community because they were solid people. We had grown up with them and so on. I got into high school and I began working. By the way, the high schools were extremely crowded because of the influx of immigrants from other states who came here to work in the defense industry. We had a large defense industry involving the manufacturing of aircraft, manufacturing of boats, merchant ships, anything connected with the Department of Defense, and obviously the military itself grew many times over what it was during peacetime. I got to work with many companies during that time, including one defense contractor who put me to, I was 16 years old. The defense contractor put me to work in the lousiest, noisiest department they had. Probably contributed a bit to my hearing loss in later life. And then I went to work with other companies involved in produce, automotive services, and so on. I got to see what was happening in the schools. The faculties were rated, not rated particularly, but they lost a lot of the professional teachers, and we were stuck with folks who maybe otherwise would not have been teachers, and maybe that contributed to the loss and degradation of the education system. Got to see a little bit about how the draft board operated, and there appeared to be no deferments for Latinos. I should be looking at this thing, but in any event, I tasted a bit of what was going on during the war and so on, and learned a lot from that. And then after the war, in October 1945, I went into the military, went through basic training, went through a number of schools, did my stint of about 3 years, and got out. I went to work for the Department of Defense.
Let me this question: what branch did you serve in?
I was in the Army Air Corps and later became the U.S. Air Force.
What were your specific roles?
Well, I was in communications, and essentially I spent half my time in schools, and then I was a radio operator, and I was worked a little bit in the control tower and communication generally attached to the Strategic Air Command, and so it was a good experience in a way, but it was a waste of time. And then I should have been in college, and I was in the military, but that's another matter. And so I left in 1948, immediately went to work for the U.S. Navy as a civilian, and obviously with limited skills, didn't have the best job around. So immediately enrolled in school and started doing my college work. Meanwhile, I did get some opportunities within the Department of Defense and the Navy to go up the ladder, as it were, into more responsible jobs. But still witnessed a lot of discrimination. And so I stayed with them for a number of years and then left and went to work in the private sector. By this time, I was in engineering and had a chance to do some really professional engineering work. I worked in a private sector, primarily in the organization that built the Atlas missile. And my responsibilities were to help design the facility, the first one in the world designed exclusively to manufacture guided missiles. And so that was a great experience. And then I left them and went back to government and worked in a number of capacities. And then left government again in 1964 and went to enrolled in law school. I attended law school for about 2 years and then left and went to work in the executive office of the president for 5 years. Also, in between, I worked for the mayor of San Diego as an assistant to the mayor. And so I had the benefit of getting around the city a lot, learning how the bureaucracy worked, and so on. I left the mayor's office and went back to the executive office of the president, where I became a regional director of an agency, and left there at about the time that President Nixon was going through a lot of his troubles, and he went back to the Department of Defense and retired some 9 years later. So I had an interesting experience there. But during I got to tell you, during the Korean War, I was working exclusively in the Department of Defense, and I worked in ordnance, and we were the ones that provided some of the mechanisms, guns, etc., to aircraft used in the Korean War. During the Vietnam War, I was a member of the draft board, and I saw firsthand how the draft board operated, and in particular how the appeals board operated, and that was a service and an assignment that made a very deep impression on me, because I saw that our people, our Latino people, were hardly ever the beneficiaries of any appeals. And what we saw in terms of appeals were a lot of the Anglo-Saxons appearing before the appeal boards to seek deferments. And while some of them were very legitimate, many of them came with bogus claims of homosexuality, conscientious objector type backgrounds, and all in all was not a great experience. and so but I got a good indication of how it worked, and as I reflect back on it, and I know that the many very successful people in the community were people who were very successful at dodging the draft. And I think I'm not talking out of school. I think that some of it's been documented and so on. And I won't name names, but this is what happened. It happened during the Korean War, Vietnam War, and I know it happened during the World War II. And many of these people were able to continue their lives, enlarge their roles in their businesses. Many people became wealthy, and I think that was an experience that probably happens every time we have a war. Altogether, of my we were 7 brothers and 2 sisters in our family, and all 7 of us have served in the military. And we all served different branches. There were one served in the Marine Corps, 2 of us served in the Air Force.
Can you tell us their names, sir? Your brothers?
Well, the oldest one was Joseph. He served in the infantry. Uh,
What theater? What theater?
he was in Europe. He was in the 78th Division. The next one was Reuben, and he served in the, you interviewed him. He served in the South Pacific. And then the next one was Nicholas, and he served in the Army Air Corps. And then I was the fourth one to go in. I served in it, ultimately the Air Force.
Nicholas was in what theater?
He stayed in America here, and he was in the training command, training crews for bomber squadrons that ultimately wound up in England and the South Pacific and so on. So he did. He was a fantastic mechanic, and he just was very capable. And so then I went in, and my next brother was Armando A.Y., and he was drafted into the army in the Korean War, and he was in intelligence, and he stayed here in the States most of the time to do his stint. He did his 2 years or whatever it was that they did in the Korean War. And even before he went in, my brother Charles he was in the Marine Corps Reserve, and he got called immediately at the beginning of the Korean War. And he wound up in Korea quickly, and he took part in the campaigns there, including the retreat from the Chosin Reservoir, very famous retreat. And he got evacuated out of Korea in a submarine. That's how they got some of the guys out. And then the last one they went in was Felix, and he went into U.S. Air Force, and he was in the Strategic Air Command, and he served his time in heavy bombers and this sort of. So all seven of us took part in the military.
There's a school here in Chula Vista named after one of your brothers. Can you comment about that?
Yeah, that school was named after Joseph Casillas, and came about because he truly was a hero. He was in the 78th Division in Europe, and he got his decorations, including the Silver Star and the Bronze Star and Purple Heart and Combat Infantryman badge, etc. As a result of an action near Schmidt, Germany, where he saved his entire squad. 11 of his squad he saved them, and he in the process got hurt by the Germans. He got shot in the head and in the arm, and they captured him and held him prisoner for 1 day and gave him medical treatment. His division moved back up 24 hours later, and the Germans had evacuated the bunker and they left him there. His division picked him up, and he was taken to various hospitals, including a hospital in California, where he underwent various operations, and he survived. And he then attended the University of California, graduated from Davis, and was an engineer for 25 years, and then worked for the county of San Diego in the human resources area as a contracts administrator and so on. But he was very interested in education, had a large influence on many on his brothers and sisters and many nephews and nieces and so on. And so the school is named after him. He was a solid citizen, born here in Chula Vista.
You started talking about the draft board and your role. While you were in the draft board, how many Latino side appeals that you can maybe remember? Or
In my entire experience on the appeals board of the draft board, only one Latino appeared. One. And I think I for 2.5 years or so. I don't recall exact. I had to leave it when I went to Denver, Colorado. This individual was a young man, married, had 3 youngsters, and he was supporting his mother and father. His father was disabled, couldn't work. He worked in the tomato fields of North County in agriculture, tomatoes when it was season and other crops. And then in the evening time, he worked at a golf course, a country club, as a busboy or dishwasher. And he did this in order to make ends meet, of course. And so they classified him 1A, and subject to call up and induction, and he appealed it. And clearly, this board had to grant him a deferment. It would have been a totally, totally a criminal to induct him when he had these responsibilities. And that was the only Latino that I saw in 2.5 years on that board. Otherwise, everybody else. And by the way, during that 2.5 year period, I saw one individual of color, and he appealed on the basis of what he had to do as well in terms of taking care of parents and so on. And he was granted deferment. Otherwise, everybody else was Anglo-Saxon, with all kinds of stories about their problems with homosexuality, wetting the bed, physical problems, conscientious objector status, etc., etc. Not a great assignment.
The appeals board, was it a local appeal board just for local residents, or was
yeah.
it, or just anybody from nationally can come down and appeal?
No, just local for the
local
San Diego County Draft
San Diego
Board.
County. How many appeals did you guys grant, more or less?
There was a lot of them granted. I couldn't remember, but by and large, when these guys came, they was just almost a blanket approval, a pro forma thing. And on occasion I would get into arguments with other members over what I thought to be bogus claims. And there were people on the board who obviously saw it differently than I, and so a vast majority of these appeals were granted.
Backtracking a little bit, how did we started talking about the Great Depression. The Repatriation Act occurred sometime around the 30s, when the Great Depression was maybe at its height. And how did that impact the Latino community? Or did you see any?
Well, I was just pretty young, I was 5 or 6, and but I remember that the old folks talking about some of the relations being deported, and I remember them talking about some of the relations leaving their homes, and in my neighborhood, we saw some vacant homes, empty homes, so were left by some of these folks, and that's what I remember about it. Not till later did I get the full impact of what that was all about. And and by the way, I have testified for the Senate Committee on Immigration, and I was authorized to go on the part to represent the California Department of the GIAC Forum, and so I could say whatever I wanted. They gave me carte blanche, and talked a little bit about the immigration thing, and my views were probably out of step with some of other folks, but I just told it the way I saw it, in terms of what I thought the controls should be, and who should be admitted, and how, and the lack of enforcement of the immigration laws, and the fact that it was obvious big business was all behind, big business and agribusiness behind the lack of enforcement, which impacted those immigrants who were here legitimately, because every brown face was painted with the same brush, legal or illegal, and it had ramifications. I talked about that before the Senate Immigration Committee. And we've seen it because, we're that so close to the border. So, but that's an aside in a way. But
Was there any of your relatives or friends affected by the Repatriation Act?
yeah, my father's relatives were affected. At least 3 of his cousins and their families left, and there was a my mother's sister, I think, was one affected as well, and they returned in about 1938, 39, and their family grew, a very successful family, and so on. But yeah, I think almost everybody had somebody that was.
Now, were people just picked up from their homes, or
See, I don't remember how they did that, but I think what they did, they gave them a notice, and it says, on a certain date you need to be. But I don't know that for certain, and some of the historians may talk about that.
Well, your brother was in the hospital when he got injured after being captured by the Germans. You had mentioned that he was with Raúl Morin at one point.
Yes.
The author of Among the Valiant.
Yeah.
And
they were in the same hospital.
They were in the same hospital.
And they got the Purple Heart on the same order, special orders. Yeah. And we didn't know this until we did the research to do a biography at the naming of the school after my brother Joseph. And in going through all of that, all his documents, the special orders that awarded him that Purple Heart included the name of Raúl Morin. And this was verified by Raúl Morin's son, Eddie, who lives in Pasadena. Sure enough, they were there at the same time. Raúl Morin was in the 79th Division. My brother was in the 78th. And they were, the 79th Division had been in combat. I think they were in they may have been North Africa and Italy and in there. I'm not sure, but Raúl Morin talks about it in his book.
Do you remember who, with what commander did your brother serve? Under which commander?
No.
Let's just one more point. During your whole experience in the military, did you ever, were there any Mexican officers?
I didn't see one.
So, one more point that I want to fill in. During your school years here in Chula Vista, I'm just backtracking a little bit. Tell us a little bit about school, going to school on a daily basis. Were Latinos treated fairly in school systems, for example?
Well, that's the impression you got until you got into high school, in junior high school. In high school, while a lot of my colleagues, if you will, fellow students, folks who I grew up with, were outstanding athletes. A lot of them did not get an opportunity to participate in the games and in the activities. And I commented to my wife last night. We were watching the Olympics, and one activity in particular was the shot put, some of the big ball. I was telling her, I says, you know what? I was very good at that. But the coach never could let me compete. And I said, I was real good in the high hurdles. He never let me compete. I'd go to track meets and just sit there. And I was a halfback on the football team. And I'd go and just sit on the bench. And during practice time, do dynamite job and so on. It happened to a lot of our guys. And the guys that got to play were other folks who weren't as morenos as we were, you know. And I've reflected on this a lot, and I think that there was something going on. And again, no Latino teachers, no Latino administrators, and as I've said before, not even Latino janitor. And this thing didn't begin to change till about, I think, the late 60s.
¿Los estudiantes eran permitidos hablar español durante esos años de escuela?
Oh, claro que sí. Yo nunca vi que les indicaran que no podían hablar el idioma
En la escuela.
en la escuela.
While you were in the military now, how do you get along with the high command in the military?
How did I get along?
Or be the relation?
Not great. And that's why I never got rank. And see, one of the things that my father always said was respect your elders, those in authority. And I think it worked in civilian life pretty good. I got into the military, and my superiors were a bunch of clowns. I saw things in the military, you know, that I thought were just horrible. All kinds of things on the part of officers doing and engaging in behavior that I thought was out of line. And I was not raised that way, so I guess I was, you know, sort of walking against the waves, as it were. And so I guess I was just a little bit more rebellious than most guys, and didn't take them all that seriously. Because I saw so much of a waste of time in the military, so much posturing, so much, I guess now you call it just covering your behind, and primarily posturing for advancement and that kind of stuff. I mean, I just thought that was not what I wanted to see, but obviously it happens a lot at all levels of government and in the private sector too, I guess, you know, but I just wasn't comfortable with it. Yeah.
Would you say there was discrimination in the military?
Oh, hell yes. There was, when I went to technical schools, I don't remember ever going to technical school where I saw another Latino. They may have been there. I never saw them. And of my 3 years in the military, I'll bet you I was in school for over a year and a half. And I could have gone to more. I could have gone to officer school. And I was turned off by the military. And I said, I don't need to go to officer school because that meant I would have had to stay another 3 or 4 years. And I said, I can't deal with it. But just my personality, it didn't fit the military. And so I never saw, you know, a great number of Latinos in the technical schools. They may have been at other schools, but I didn't see them where I went.
During those years, did most of your friends, Latino friends, go to war?
Well, almost all of them that I went to high school with, you know, they went to the military, and some of them did not survive, you know, and some of them did not make Korea. I mean, they two very dear friends, we grew up together, died in Korea one day apart. They were cousins, one day apart. And I think I may have mentioned that the whole subdivision has street names after deceased veterans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these two two streets will be named after them. But there's more. There's about 5 or 7 of them. And the streets will be named after them. And it's a little bit of means to remember them. So, but yeah, a lot of my colleagues Well, very few didn't escape, even after the war. Because I was in a class of 1946,
Mm-hmm.
but I went into the military in 1945, so I didn't graduate with my class. Well, a lot of them had already gone to the military, and so they went in. Some of them went in the 10th grade because they were 17, and you could get into the military if you were 17 if your parents signed for you. You could get into the Merchant Marine if you were 16 and your parents signed for you, which my mother never wanted to do for me because I wanted to get in the Merchant Marine.
How do your parents feel about the war? Did they were they supportive of the war
Hell
and,
no.
the other sons going to war?
No, no. My father was adamant about it. He said from day one, he said, it's nothing but a cooked up deal for some people to make a lot of money. And they don't give a damn about people getting killed. And that's how he felt about it. And to tell you the truth, is as you see the evidence and you see what happened.
How did it feel or to having grown and to be Mexican and then maybe not seen as an quote unquote American here in the society and then going to war to fight for this country? Did that feel kind of contradictory maybe? Or,
Well, yeah, but you still feel like this is your land and your country and you were raised here and with all the problems and you just strive to do the best. See, you're inculcated with a set of values. That's what we got at home. Do the best. Work. Do the best. Stay out of trouble. And in fact, nine of us grew up. None of us ever got arrested. None of us we were never in jail. And my mother was very proud of that. She thought, hey, that's an achievement. You raised 9 personalities, and they all grew up to be pretty solid citizens, and she was very proud of that. So you just go and you fight and for what you believe, and you do what you can. But I saw a lot of that.
were any of your brothers pachucos?
No. Oh, no. One of my brothers started to wear his Pachuco things, and God, I can remember like yesterday. My mother said to him, "You will not wear that kind of stuff, uh, and forget it." And so he kept on wearing his, what was the term they used? Takuche, right? Yeah. And so one morning, my mother went into his bedroom, and she cut up all his clothes. She got her scissors. She cut to shreds all of his clothes. He got the message. No long hair. No. Now, I didn't particularly find those guys wearing that stuff offensive, but that was me. And I knew, by the way, a lot of black youngsters used to wear those. And I went to school with one youngster. He was in my class. I mean, he was a dude. And he wore the whole thing, man. The hat, the chain, the whole thing. And a few of the other guys, the Mexicanos did, but not a lot of them. Mostly they did in LA. But here in San Diego, we don't see a lot of it. Very little. But yeah, my mother would not, she's intolerant. And I'm sure that if she'd been alive during the hippie movement, she would have had something to say about that.
Were the schools were integrated, right? When you went to school, were they segregated?
No.
Or no? Were black people in your community, or when you were in the military, were they integrated with the other military?
When I went in the military, it was segregated. And in fact, during the first month and a half I was in, at Wichita Falls, Texas, there was a big riot. There were 48,000 troops there at that base. And got back from the first Liberty. Navy guys call it Liberty. We got a pass to go into the city. And, you do this usual thing. You go out and you get a good dinner. And the place was dry. You couldn't get anything to drink. And so we came back to the base. and the military police were all over the place. There was a horrendous riot going on in the parade ground. And it all started in one of the service clubs or something, and the blacks were segregated. So this is my first experience of something like that, And that's where I also saw a lot of discrimination because a lot of the officers were from the South. And you know how they felt about blacks? And they would tell us, you better perform better than those, all the terms they used to describe them. And if you don't perform better, then, you're going to pay hell for it, kind of stuff. This is going on.
Did they ever tell you that?
Yeah, the officers. A lot of them were from the South. That's how they felt, And they didn't hide it. It was open. And that was I grew up with black kids and knew their dads and the families. And so I didn't, have any of that.
In Chula Vista, were blacks also integrated in the community, or did they have separate communities?
Well, they had a community down south Chula Vista where a lot of them lived. Okay, and there was just a sprinkling of them, up here in the central part. But see, when I was growing up, Chula Vista only had 5,000 people. I mean, when I was in junior high school, 5,000 people, and so the contingent of black people was kind of small, but they were in school with us, and a lot of them were good athletes. Some of the girls were dynamite singers, they were as talented as anybody else, maybe more so, But we got into high school and into athletics and so on, and there was this discrimination I'm talking about. It affected them just like it affected us.
Did you hear about the Lemon Grove incident during the time?
Oh yeah, I know the guy. Have you talked to him? The plaintiff?
No.
Se llama Alvarez?
Alvarez?
Yeah. Robert?
No, I've seen the documentary, but I don't remember the specific name.
Yeah, he's in there, right? The interview.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Alvarez, sure, I remember that. And for a number of reasons.
Mm-hmm. How did your community react to that Lemon Grove incident when this was happening?
Well, that was in early 30s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was just a kid, I was born in 27, so it probably occurred when I was 5 years old, 6 years old, maybe, I know.
And how do you know Mr. Alvarez?
Oh, he's been a friend of mine a long time. He owns a company called Coast Citrus.
Mm-hmm.
Very successful businessman. And so I've known him a long time. Fine person, fine family. Yeah.
Let's get into post-war period. If you just you can, if you want to approach it from in a chronological perspective, what are the things you were involved with right after World War II? And in fact, let me before we get into your post-war experiences, how do you when the United States dropped the atomic bomb and the war ended, were you in support of that atomic bomb or of the U.S. dropping the atomic bomb?
I probably wasn't sophisticated enough to appreciate all the ramifications, I'm not sure I appreciate all now, but you got to remember we had in the family, we had 3 in the military. One of them was in the South Pacific. He was in the infantry. If we had invaded Japan, without a doubt, he would have been one of them, And then that's Reuben. And then Joseph was just coming out of the military after spending 6-7 months in hospitals. My other brother was still in, Nicholas, okay, and I was out. I didn't go in until that was happening in August, and I went August. 2 months later, I was in the military, and so we were delighted that I think is that the thing was over. That at least that killing was going to stop, that our guys were going to be returning, those that returned. And I think that's how the community felt, you know. Uh, Horrible thing. You know, a lot of feelings about that.
So, towards the end of the war, that's when you were. Now, did you get any chance to see any go abroad or anything like that?
I had a chance to go, but I didn't go. I didn't have to. The war was over, and I had a choice of assignments. I could have gone to Spain, Italy, England, Germany, France, Puerto Rico, Latin America, the Asian country. I could have gone anywhere. They gave you a choice because they needed you over there, you know, because of the major forces, you know, the big forces were coming back to the States. And so I chose to go to school.
Oh, so that was one of the options they gave you?
Yeah.
Go to school or go.
Yeah.
Sort of like super. Yeah. Okay. Post-war, when you got out of the military, did you in in the process of trying to find a stable career or stabilize your future at the time, did you encounter discrimination when you in any of your careers or professions?
Well, see, immediately upon leaving the military, I got a job with the government. That was not a problem. I mean, I was only out of the military less than 2 weeks, and I had a job. And but it was not the best paying job in the world. It was rather a lowly job, but it was a job. So I worked at that, and as I started to go up the career ladder, if you will, if it was a career, yeah, I did encounter a hell of a lot of discrimination, and it was it was always the same reason. You know, they would say, you were not as well prepared as the next guy got the job. The fact is, it's falsehood. Yeah, but there was no Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. There was no state office on equal opportunity. There was nothing in that. So these guys who had been in control forever, still in control after World War II. So they could do whatever they wanted. And in some situations, it seems that the guys that got the better positions who hadn't belonged to certain organizations, you know. And just as there was this clique in the military at one time of the West Pointers and the Annapolis guys, the ring knockers. There was equivalent of that in the civilian workforce in the government. And in certain organizations, you had to belong to some or other. Okay, and I'm not going to name what they were, but that's a reality. So here's this young guy, 21 years old, 22, trying to bump that. A lot of discrimination. So whatever I got, trust me, I had to fight for it. And I overcame a lot of it when I finally finished my college. I mean, they can't take it away from you. And you know, but they still can discriminate because they can fabricate systems and methodologies and what have you to sidetrack you and minorities generally and so on. And you know what? It's 2000 and it's still going on. And the only way to beat that, in my judgment, is through the courts. And I found it very difficult to organize our people to take that approach. The Mexican American Legal Defense Fund, it's been one approach. That began about the time that the new society, not the new society, but the Johnson's War on Poverty in the 60s
Mm-hmm.
began. Okay. So you want to cut it? So they got some funding, they got started. And so so but otherwise in the federal service and state service, it's been difficult to organize the guys. And you know, I don't know what it's going to take, but
After leaving the military, what was there something that influenced your involvement with politics or government?
yeah, yeah, this business of feeling powerless and feeling that the only way you could change things is to get in a position where you could influence the outcome or policy, and in whatever small way a guy can do it, I think is great. That's what got me.
Mhm.
And of course, Armando Shadow getting me involved in that school board race.
Yes, can you tell us some of the things, some of the activities you participated, or organizations, or earlier you started talking about your different involvements with different communities, and what's it, Nixon you work with?
Oh yeah, I was I was involved in the Nixon campaign in 1968.
Mm-hmm.
I was a member of a committee for the state of California, and after we got elected, and I was offered many different jobs.
Such as?
Oh, I was offered jobs: Department of Labor, Department of Education, Health, Education, Welfare. Uh, Ultimately, I wound up in the executive office, and but I had many offers of different jobs, and I didn't want to leave and go back to Washington, so I wound up going to San Francisco and to Denver, Colorado, and so on. But my principal office was in the executive office in Washington.
So what exactly do you do in the Nixon campaign?
I just advised on how we might attract Latino voters, topics that I felt were important, and then had forwarded that information to some of the campaign strategists and so on, and suggested where he might go to get maximum exposure, and some of the things that they might talk about, and what they might do in the way of mailers and this kind of stuff. And it was, sort of a freebie consulting, if you will, and so.
And why did you refuse to take many of the offers that you were?
I didn't want to go to Washington D.C.
Mhm.
and I spent some time there, of course, because the the executive office is there, uh, and then because I had things going here
Mhm.
and in California, and I felt I could help my people better if I was in a place in California where we were dispersing funds
Mhm.
to help organizations.
Mhm.
And I could name some that I was involved in that today are very successful. But I don't want to do that.
Mhm. Okay. You maintained that after the the Nixon campaign, you were offered positions abroad in Latin America, and you turned them down.
Yes,
Why?
because I didn't like the way they came about. I felt there was something else behind it other than me being a competent professional, etc. And I just said no.
Um, Also, for the documentation of this of your experiences, tell us how you got involved with the city council and the effort in the effort to have some of the new developed areas of Chula Vista be named after World War II veterans?
Oh, yeah.
The streets.
Yeah, this as a member of the Planning Commission,
Mm-hmm.
the Planning Commission rules and votes and approves subdivisions and projects, et cetera, et cetera. And as a member of that commission, I engaged one of the developers who had this proposal before the commission, a significant 600-acre development, and I approached him and suggested that they name the streets after the veterans of Chula Vista who had died in the war. And what I had specific in mind were the guys that I went to school with. In fact, one of those guys and I entered the military on the same day. That same day, there were 4 of us from here, Latinos that entered the military, same branch, etc., who went to Los Angeles, got inducted. So I didn't persuade him particularly. I had many discussions with the developer, and he agreed to do it. So I organized a group of veterans organization guys, and involved community, but all veterans. And we got together. We suggested a list of names. So they went along with that. They submitted to the city. The city approved them. And so the final subdivision map included all those names for those streets. And so that was my involvement in it. Okay. And now it's reality. Their signs are going up. And I've received a lot of positive feedback from survivors of, family members of the deceased. It's been a very positive experience. And
did you experience any conflict while you were while you were working on this project to make it a reality?
It's subtle. Only after it had been approved, it was approved 10 years ago, 1990, 91. And a new developer came in and attempted to change the names. And in fact, he got approval to do it. And then I went back to the city council through the veterans organizations and veterans committee and a member of the city council, and just backtracked and got the project back on to its original configuration. That is the name business. And during that process, there was some subtle resistance to it. And but it's a done deal now. Go forward. It was good. You mentioned organizations. You want to know organizations I belong to?
The organization been involved with.
Let me tell you about the Latino organization I was involved with. I was involved with at one time with the GIAC Forum.
Mm-hmm.
I was involved with for a short period with MAPA. I was never involved with the LULAC. I was not ever a member of that. There's an organization in San Diego called the Chicano Federation. I was one of the organizers of that, in the sense that me and about 9 or 10 other guys, we proposed the concept, and the
concept of Chicano Federation.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we didn't call it that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the reason we didn't call it that was because some of the guys said we don't want Chicano in the word, in the name. But anyway, and pretty soon it took on a political aura, and some of the guys pulled back because we said, hey, we didn't start out with a political organization. We wanted a social service organization to address issues that affect all of Latinos, and you guys are making this a political thing. And if you're not a Democrat, then you guys are going to give us short shrift. So some of the guys just pulled back, but I was involved in that, and no biggie. But then in the non-Latino organizations, I was on the board of directors of Salvation Army. I was a member of the Civil Service Commission of the county of San Diego 7 years. And let me tell you what happened there. The county employed people, and they had some people doing work with monolingual, because there's a lot of areas in government, and you get a lot of people coming to government who don't speak English. So they have to have somebody who's bilingual. Okay. So I took the position that if they had this skill, they should get paid extra. So I proposed it and fought it through. And guess what? They gave them a 7.5% bonus. And that happened when I was on Civil Service Commission, personnel matters, right? I wanted 10%, but they screwed us out of the other 2.5% because I wasn't there the day you voted on it. I had to stay in San Francisco and so on, So I did that. So then I became a member of the Housing Authority of the County of San Diego. I served on that for a number of years. And I became a member of the Planning Commission of the City of Chula Vista. When I resigned, I was the president. And I was the president of the chairman of the Housing Commission. They fired me from that. Okay. And they didn't like my views on housing. And so, I formed an organization of Latinos called this North Island Hispanic Association with the purpose of fighting all discrimination. And we had 700 employees, Latino employees over there. And the most we ever got in our membership was 130. And we fought as well as we could with the emphasis on legal approaches to fighting discrimination. Legal meaning courts.
Yeah. What specific goals did you guys have?
Equal opportunity.
Equal opportunity.
Training. What was promotions.
Was there a lot of discrimination?
Oh, hell yes.
There.
It's there today. And I saw it because I was one of the senior managers, and in fact, at one time, I was an equal employment opportunity officer for 2 years. And I saw it firsthand. They discriminated against me. And I had been a presidential appointee, and when I applied for a lesser job, they said I wasn't qualified. Come on, And so I filed a lawsuit. And
what was the outcome?
The Circuit Court of Appeals turned it down to protect the government. It's hard as hell. But I have a theory that if I had been black, I would have won. Because you know what happens when black guys, I shouldn't say it, but it's a reality. And I was there. I saw it. I saw it in the executive office. I saw Department of Defense. I've seen in county government. I've seen in city government. All over. So it's not, I'm not, they've had a lot of problems and they need help, and everybody needs equity, Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, I've seen some things that were just terrible. Mm-hmm. And you see these things that you got to wonder about where we're going, but got to keep fighting. Well, then I belong to a whole bunch of other organizations in the city task forces to do this and that, budget. One time I was a budget officer.
What were your specific duties or roles in when you were involved with organizations like MAPA
and not much particularly. In the GI Forum, the emphasis was on political, apprising guys of the need for political power. GI Forum, and your dear GI Forum members aren't going to like this, But I always felt it was a social organization. Really didn't start that way. Because I had a lot of respect for Dr. Garcia when he started. And some very good people in it. But locally, my experience was there was too much socializing and not enough emphasis on the real key issues, meaning getting our veterans in positions of responsibility, et cetera, you know. And so I had sort of a falling out with it. But, you know, I had fallen out with a lot of organizations. So the GI Forum, well, it's like any organization. They're subject to pressures. And sometimes they can't carry out their mandate, you know. But that's only one organization. There's others also doing good work. And so
During the civil rights movement, were you involved with any proactive movements to help locally, or for example, even the Cesar Chavez, were you involved with Cesar Chavez here in San Diego?
no, although I met him. See, I never participated in the grapes boycott, that sort of thing. I was working from another angle. See, I was in the office, for example, in the mayor's office, and I was trying to channel funds over to our guys as well as I could. Funds and influence to get some things done, get guys appointed, this sort of thing. When I was in office of the president, that's why, you know, some of the guys didn't like me because they saw me as I was imitating the blacks.
Maybe would you ever?
That's what the blacks were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, numero uno, focused. That's it. And they didn't give a damn about what was going on in East Los Angeles. They didn't give a damn what was going on in Oakland. You know, that was not their concern. They wanted their bucks. They wanted their influence. They wanted dollars, etc. They wanted their guys appointed, etc., etc. Focused. Okay. When I was in office of president, I did the same. I was trying to do the same thing, except they saw us as being weak, and they could take you on, and that's why they would pull some of the stuff they pulled. And I saw it firsthand. And so when I had an opportunity to try to promote our guys, I did. And indeed, during the Nixon administration, there were 3 appointments, high-level appointments, that I don't want to say I was responsible for them. That's not right. But I was damn influential in the outcome. And when they had to get cleared through the White House, you know what they called? And I gave okay. They were not even Republicans. I mean, they were Democrats. And the guys in the White House says, we didn't get the White House so we could appoint Democrats. But you got to have some balance. And these were great people. And you made the argument. And it worked. And that's, you know, in my view, that's a real positive if you can do that. And so a lot of that was going on. And there were some key positions in the city of San Diego that needed a Latino touch. And the mayor called me on several occasions, and I was happy to provide what I could in the way of, you know, supporting a rationale for some of these things. Mm-hmm. You know,
Do you think that the civil rights movement helped the Latinos?
Sure. Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, you know, because we were part of it. It's still going on. Mm-hmm. You know, and the and it has cost some people a lot, man. You know, I complain from time to time, but it didn't cost me what it cost some people, and so it's a struggle. It's going to go on for a long time until, well, I don't know.
What were your views of the Vietnam War, or maybe what are your views of the Vietnam War still today?
Well, I kind of the way I felt about the Korean War, uh, that I'm not sure we belong there. That I'm not sure it was our business, and I'm not sure that the propaganda that the government was putting out, that if we didn't take out the North Koreans, the world was going to end. Uh, and and definitely was opposed to so many of our people getting involved in it. I heard a stat the other day that said that 28% of the names on the wall in Washington, the wall, the 28% of the names are Latinos. Now, I don't know how accurate that is. This is one guy was telling me. He says, my cousin's there. And he says, not been there. So I don't know whether that's true or not. That's too high a price.
1/3.
That's too high a price. We're not a third of the population. And as this gentleman was telling me too, he says, one of my other cousins was in the 82nd Airborne Division. And he commented to him about seeing all these movies, Sergeant Ryan or what the hell ever it was, and all these other things. And he says, and in all these movies, all you see are Anglos. He said, but when the 82nd Airborne Division was falling and getting their butt kicked, everywhere you learn, you look, you saw nothing but brown faces. There are folks. And he says, the history is distorted. Talk about revised. That's and so I think that again, and I think the Vietnam thing was just too much, man. It's none of our damn business. And Secretary McNamara, he wrote a book now, and it's saying, what was this? He made mistakes, Johnson made mistakes, and so on. And so, interesting, a lot of us, we felt that way then. And there was some justification for these guys that said, hell no, I won't go. Saying, not my thing. And so, but, and our guys, right on target, man, they did their thing.
Do you think that the government has, in some ways, forgotten about the World War II veterans and giving them the support, maybe, or um, a lot of the World War II veterans right now don't get maybe health insurance and appropriate.
Well, I don't know how much of that is, it's propaganda by the part of veterans organizations, and how much is legitimate. As I understand it, a veteran who is in need of medical care, for example, as I understand it, he can get it. He did his tour and he served, and he's older now, of course. I don't know what else. We got the GI Bill, we got the benefit. If the guy was injured in the service and he got a pension or something, I think it continues. I don't know. I don't know how much of that is for real and how much is, puff. But I don't run into a lot of World War II veterans who are complaining. I mean, maybe I don't associate too many of them. But I think that the VA hospitals, although that they've cut back on the funding somewhat, probably doing an adequate job. I can't judge. I've never been there, and so.
Great. I think we're close to finishing here. You also married, right? And how many children do you have?
Two.
2 children. And did they also attend college?
Yeah, one of them's a doctor.
It's a doctor.
The other one's a lawyer.
Do you think that formal question? Do you think that the Reagan administration was responsible for the collapse of the Soviet Union?
If you put it in the context that they collapse because of the Cold War, it's like two poker players, and the one guy has so many chips that the other guy can't possibly keep up with him. Ultimately, he goes broke. That's probably what happened. Their economy was not such they could keep up with the buildup. And when you consider the stupidity of having thousands of the warheads, it doesn't take thousands to blow up the world. It just takes a few. And all those resources going into that to make a whole bunch of millionaires here, and then over there, if they don't have the private capitalist system, then they're just blowing the people's resources and so on. So, in that sense, I suppose you could say, hey.
What do you think about the Gulf War? Do you think the U.S. had any business there?
No, I don't. I never thought that we had any business there. I always thought it was a exercise where President Bush could tell the world he's in charge. 10 years later, where are we on? We're back, square one. You don't accomplish goddamn thing, so except expend a lot of money.
Eat the machine. Do you think war is a good thing?
Oh, no, damn well it can't be good. How can it be good to kill a bunch of people? So, it's crazy. And I suppose it's going to be with us forever and ever. Particularly if arms are so readily available.
What advice do you give to future generations, the youth?
Just one thing. Be smarter than the next guy. Be better prepared. Yeah. if you can't compete, you're nowhere. And the way you compete is you're better. I don't know. I'm not that great at giving advice.
What do you think the key is to be able to compete?
Education. And most of the time, that will take you into the money and political arena. Most of the time. And once you get into the money and political arena, you can have influence. And you can influence outcomes. And you can influence policy. Isn't that what the lobbyists do? Yeah.
Great. Once again, we want to thank you for your time and your collaboration with this research project, Mr. Casillas. And
Thank you. Thank you
this
for taking
document.
this time.